Hello. Today we are taking a look at the different types of governments. And although this isn't a government class, it's important to understand the structures of people who are in power because sometimes that can influence the way that decisions are made and how the history is going to fall out then from the actions and decisions of the people in power. So, today we're going to take a look at kind of the definition and break down what are these different types of governments, and then we're going to look at the historical moments when we've seen them actually in play. Okay, so we're going to take a look first at a republic style of government. Okay, this is going to sound familiar because we use some of these ideals in our own system of government in the United States today. So, what is it? What does it look like to have a republic? Well, you elect someone to represent you. So, for the most part, average citizens are not taking part in the decision making process for laws. They are not creating the laws, but they've elected someone who then is going to vote for the region or those group of people. Typically, when we see a republic established in a government for a country, it's going to be the elites of society that have been elected into position. And especially when we look at ancient era and even in the mid-centuries, Middle Ages, you're going to see that it's going to be the elites because they have the means to leave their home. They have the means to leave and not be worried about keeping the family farm running, or they're able to travel back and forth between wherever the assembly is meeting and their home. And so they have the ability to participate in government as well as have a family back home and take care of things. So, what would be an advantage of a republic? Well, it's a little bit faster. You have some people who are experts in their field, and you aren't bogging down the entire population with debating and voting that would need to take place every single day, especially as a government or civilization grows larger and larger. The population grows larger, and you don't want every single citizen voting, debating on every issue. It's just nonsensical. It doesn't work logistically, and it's inefficient. But why would it be a disadvantage? Okay, think about a republic and thinking about having different groups of people who are there. While debating is good, sometimes it can take a little bit to get through the work that maybe doesn't need to be focused on in that moment, and a lot of the good interests or ideas may get lost in the debates that are occurring between all of these different men. So, when have we seen a republic in history? Well, we take a look at early Rome. Okay, so originally there was the 300 members of the elite class, and they were elected to make decisions. You were allowed to be a part of this if you were a man, land owning citizen, and typically were going to be more wealthy. These men only served one term. This was a check that they had on each other so that way people didn't become dictators or stick around too long and end up corrupting the system. If by chance the government was going to go to war, the Senate, which was the name of the 300 members, the Senate could elect a leader during war. Now, that leader, if they so choose, would be in power and then need to give back the reins of power to that Senate. Okay. Later in early Rome history, okay, so in 450 BC, the plebeians, which were the poor farmers, the merchants, they end up gaining control of the Senate as they fought for more rights, more access to being a part of the political process. And this is where we're going to see Rome transition a little bit more into a democracy. Okay, so I'm going to have you hit pause on the video. I'd like you to go watch this link. Once you're done, you're going to come back and you'll be able to hit play again. All right. Getting into a democracy. This is where Rome was heading towards. What exactly is a democracy? Again, this is going to sound familiar to a system we have here in the United States. This is where everyone votes on every issue. Okay? If you are of voting age, you are going to have a voice in every single debate, have a chance to raise any concerns or talk about it, and you're going to vote. Okay? In a democracy, there's no one leader because everyone is making the choices. Any new laws or ideas that the population would like have to be voted on by the entire population as well. So, what's the good part of having a democracy? Well, you know for a fact that your vote is being counted towards whatever action you want to take. You know for a fact that you have a voice, okay? So it's really great to involve the citizens, making sure that the majority of the population truly is happy with what choices are being made. On the other side, if you have all of the population voting on every issue every day, there's no time left in the day to focus on a job or make money. And it's going to take a long time in order to debate as a country and make some quick decisions, especially if you need a quick decision like going to war. Okay? If a country who's a pure democracy needed to go to war, everyone would have to talk about it and everyone would have to vote on it. So that could be a little bit time consuming and waste precious time that could play a role in being successful in a war. So taking a look at Rome again. Okay, as we start to expand the Roman Empire, we're starting to look at Athens, Greece, where the wealthy and the powerful were starting to grow in the Senate. As we saw last time, the farmers, artisans had to sell their land and families in order to pay for debt. Yes, you read that right. They had to sell their families. Okay, so we see a little bit of slavery here occurring. The Cleisthenes set up the Council of 500, which was an assembly of all male citizens. Okay, so these citizens would vote, discuss every single issue. Is it a good idea? Well, if you think about democracy throughout history, typically only male land-owning citizens were allowed to be a part of the assembly. So you kind of have to question, is everyone's interest being represented? Is everyone's interest being talked about when voting? Consider, based out of these categories, who is not being represented in the government? No women, the poor, non-citizens, and slaves. That's a huge chunk of the population, yet they are not having a choice and they're not having a voice in any of the decisions being made. Again, I'd like you to hit pause. You're going to watch this video and then come back when you are ready. All right, the last form of government that we're going to take a look at is a monarchy. Okay, so what is a monarchy? That is when one person has taken control. And most of the time when we look at monarchies, it is a family lineage that is passed down from father to son, son to their son. Okay? This person is going to make all of the decisions for the entire country. Typically, there aren't a lot of checks or balances on these people, and sometimes you like them, sometimes you don't. So what would be an advantage of having a monarchy? Well, you have someone who can make a quick decision when the moment needs it. If you need to go to war, that one person can stand up and mobilize the entire army without having to debate it or convince other people, potentially wasting time. It could also be a great thing if the population likes their king and queen. If they like them, then they know that there's a stable family, stable ideas that are predictable over time. So what would be a disadvantage of a monarchy? Well, think of the flip side of having that stableness. If you don't like the king or queen, you're not going to like them or their sons or their daughters possibly. So it's also a good chance for corruption to come into play. Since there aren't a lot of checks and balances, a lot of times monarchies will become corrupt and end up either stealing from their people or wanting to go to war too often and crumbling their country. So, taking a look at a monarchy in history, we're looking at that Roman Empire again, and we're looking at Julius Caesar. Okay, so Julius Caesar was heavily involved with politics throughout his entire life. He was known as a very controlling ruler. His most famous saying is Veni Vidi Vici. It's a fun thing to say. Try it again. Veni Vidi Vici. And it literally means I came, I saw, I conquered. Okay, so if that tells you what kind of a personality Julius Caesar had, he's up front, he conquers, and that's kind of what his goals were as a leader. Well, between 48 and 44 BC, during his time as emperor, Julius Caesar ended up reorganizing the government, he created new laws, and he even changed the yearly calendar because of his absolute rule, meaning that he had the final say in all decisions that were made. So yes, he was able to further the education and economy of his country, but he was also kind of hard to deal with. And in fact, in March of 44 BC, he was stabbed and killed by his enemies in the Senate. They called him in for a meeting, and when he arrived to discuss whatever they wanted to meet about, they handed the knife back and forth and they murdered him. So I'm going to have, this is actually where we're ending, so you don't have to hit pause and come back, but you are going to go learn about Alexander's empire. Alexander the Great was another king who ruled in the ancient times, and he spread the empire as far wide as any of the ancient civilizations had before this. Okay, so consider, as we are moving through this course, why is it important that we know the power structure within a country? Could that possibly influence, are we going to war? How do countries respond to social issues? What is the relationship like between leaders and their people? Okay, so these are all really important things that historians need to think about as they start analyzing different time periods and different parts of the world. See you guys next time.